Good afternoon, everyone. Campbell McCreary here, Amvest Capital in New York City. Welcome to the Amvest Capital Inc. live webinar with Tectonic Metals. Tectonic trades on the venture as TECT and as TETOF on the OTCQB. Hope you'll enjoy today's program. It will also be available in replay mode. You get an email on that, but it'll also be about an hour after we wrap up. Available at amvestcapital.com/webinars. Feel free to chat in your questions in the question pane of GoToWebinar. Email them in. Love your questions, and it's an important key aspect of our work. Amvest is a New York-based specialist in investment management and corporate finance firm focused solely on the natural resource sector. Please note this call is for informational purposes only. We have today presenting Tony Reda, who is the founder, president, and CEO of Tectonic. Tony, by way of background, is one of the key members of the Tectonic team who was involved with Kaminak Gold, which sold to the Yukon Coffee Gold Project to Goldcorp for a mere 520 million Canadian in 2016. And he was pivotal in orchestrating capital raises and monetizing Kaminak's other projects. As VP Corp Dev for Kaminak, he executed the company's strategic financing, business development, and marketing while overseeing the public relations and IR communications of the company. Again, please share your questions. Just shoot them in the chat function here, and we'll incorporate them into our work. Welcome to the show, Tony.
Thank you for having me, Campbell, and thank you everyone for attending. Campbell, people can see my screen just to make sure that's
yep,
A-okay?
All good. You'll hear from me if it doesn't work.
Awesome. Okay, well, we'll get right into it. And I just want to thank everyone again for taking time out of their day, whether it is live or during the pre-recorded viewing. Amvest kind of go back a few years. So I want to thank them as well for giving me the opportunity to tell you a bit more about Tectonic. I know some of you are repeat viewers, so we're just going to get right into the crux of what Tectonic has been up to and where we're going this year. We're pretty excited about the year ahead. And before I get started, I would like to make mention that there are forward-looking statements are located on our website, so please take the time to read them and review them before making any sort of decision. It is there for a reason. Okay, so I mentioned we're really excited about the year that has passed, and also the one that we're going to be venturing into, more specifically in regards to the drill season that's coming up. You know, anytime as an explorer, anytime you're drilling, that's where the excitement lies. You know, if you're not drilling, you're not creating value. We've groomed these projects over the last few years to a point where they're in the best position they've been geologically. And we have some pretty exciting targets that I'm going to talk about in a moment. By way of a quick background, you know, as Campbell mentioned, a lot of the people behind Tectonic were involved with Kaminak Gold Corporation. That was our past success, but I wanted to highlight it just to remind people that, you know, we've done a fair bit, whether it's raising capital, you know, collectively the group here that you see, probably over $1 billion of capital raised. At Kaminak more specifically, I was involved in almost $200 million being raised. We've handpicked individuals and built the company around a team. So we're not a drill bit play. We're not an overnight story. We're here to actually legitimately build a team with one goal, and that's to find a mine. We want to do it with integrity. We have strong morals and ethics and core values that guide us. So the way we operate is very akin to how we would operate at home with our families and friends. You know, some people view personal life and corporate life as a huge divide. You know, I kind of say if you're an asshole at home, you're going to probably be an asshole at work. It's not an isolated, you know, scenario where you're only an asshole in one position. So how we conduct ourselves is extremely important. We are, you know, kind human beings, and we want to go into communities in which we're welcomed with open arms. So that's also part of our business model. You know, having a team is important, but having a business model that governs how we conduct ourselves in the field, at conferences, is extremely important. And our business model is really centered around relationships and people, and also around risk management. junior mining is probably 95% risk, and all you ever hear is people like myself, CEOs or other company representatives, standing in front of you and talking about the upside. Well, when are we going to talk about the downside, the risk, and how are you going to mitigate that risk or manage that risk? So that's something that's at the forefront of our model. And to that point, we've actually formed very strong relationships with the local communities and also some of the local First Nations or Native corporations, as they prefer to be called in Alaska. So working on Native-owned land is extremely beneficial. It's a much more streamlined process. And we've taken our projects and actually formed full production agreements that deal with every aspect of exploration, development, and production, preferential hiring, early engagement. This is all done ahead of time as a way to sort of make the process more streamlined. To our share structure slide, as you see here, our last published financial statement had us at roughly 3.4 million. That has slowly been dwindled down to just under 3 right now. 89 million shares outstanding. The Tectonic team owns a big chunk of the stock out. Our upside is definitely predicated on our ownership. You can see we have a small nominal amount of options outstanding. What you'll also see is that Doyon Limited is actually one of Alaska's largest Native regional corporations. We were very proud of this partnership and this relationship that we developed. We've invited them to become a stakeholder or shareholder, in our company. And this time last year, actually, they made a strategic investment in our company to the tune of just over $2 million. They now sit at roughly a 16.5% ownership. The thing to note with Doyon is that they're also they actually are the largest private landholder in the state of Alaska. And like most First Nations, they've selected their land based on mineral prospectivity. So there's definitely a pipeline of other opportunities to go and explore. In addition to Doyon, we have been able to attract high quality, respected resource funds from the likes of RCF to Mackenzie, Commodity, Discovery, so on and so forth. We're very proud again of those relationships as well. They've continued to fund us. And what you'll also note from this slide, when you look at our most recent financings, Tectonic's been public for almost 2 years now, and we actually have not raised capital below 20 cents. We're currently trading below that. So yes, our current shareholders are underwater, but we're going to do our best to sort of change that. We are looking at possibly doing another capital raise. There's some really strong interest from our existing shareholders and some new high quality funds. Our premise around financing, our belief or rationale around financings is A, the quality of the shareholder. Are they aligned with the company's mission and vision? And B, what are you going to do with that capital? What is the use of proceeds? So every time we've raised capital, we've asked ourselves, what is it going to fund? Is it relevant to take dilution off the table, providing if we do X, let's say. And again, this is also part of our business model where each project, we come up with a 3-year plan. So each year, a project has a deliverable and a certain expenditure requirement, and then we've internally calculated and presented to our board of our directors. This is part of the acquisition process. And yes, things do change along the way, but having a plan with defined goals or deliverables each and every year gives us a window on A, what is it going to cost, and B, how are we going to get there? So we have to thank our institutions for giving us the gas in the engine. And if there is a financing coming down the pipeline, let's just say for Tectonic, be aware and take note that we're actually going to use that capital for something we think could generate a significant return in our company. And we're going to talk about those projects and those targets in a moment, where I think injecting capital into the ground or drill testing these projects is warranted and actually quite exciting. I also want to highlight the past year in the sense that, what did Tectonic actually do with its capital it's raised? So I mentioned the strategic investment by Doyon Limited, our Native partner in Alaska. We were able to raise an additional $5 million through some really high quality funds and existing shareholders. And then it's like, okay, so you raised this capital, took the dilution, what did you do with it? Well, we executed 2 drill programs on 2 projects. That's Tibbs and 70 Mile. We've found gold on both properties, high grade gold to that fact. We've actually delineated some new soil anomalies that we want to test this year. We also executed 5 exploration programs across 5 projects. We acquired 3 new projects, a new data set as well, a geological data set from the Goodpaster district. We think we were it's a very accretive acquisition that has helped us tremendously and also led to the staking of our Maple Leaf property. And then the OTCQB listing that Campbell mentioned at the beginning. We also have some coverage through some relationships, and we continue to support the local communities by hiring local, working with the locals, job training, and also through scholarship contributions. So we want to make sure that our footprint that we leave behind in the state is a positive one and meaningful to the locals. Okay, we're going to talk about Tibbs as one of the projects, then we'll talk about 70 Mile. And just to recap, if there is anyone new on the line here, Tibbs is located in the Goodpaster Mining District of Alaska. You can see that the district here is anchored by the high-grade gold Pogo mine, currently owned and operated by Northern Star Resources. They're highlighted here. The land position is highlighted in purple. You can also see that Northern Star has ground right next to our property. There's a nearby, obviously with the Pogo mine being in operation, we have an active mill, infrastructure, power, road, everything's relatively nearby. So we're in close proximity to a very high-grade gold mine. The other thing to note is that Tibbs was actually initially discovered by the same entity that discovered Pogo. And this was in the mid-1990s. So Tibbs is definitely a look-alike in many ways. And I say Tibbs, I mean the mineralization is very similar to Pogo. And actually to this day, Tibbs has only produced, is the only project or zone that's actually produced high-grade Pogo-style mineralization in drilling. And that still stands true to this day. So that's a target that we're going to go after this year, and I'll talk about it in a moment here. Okay, so our work. So what have we done? As I mentioned, yes, we did some drilling. We've also done soil sampling, rock sampling, and what you're looking at here is a golden soil contour map. There's also some rock samples highlighted here in magenta, these circles here, and then you can see some historical and current drilling. One of the areas that we tested last year was Michigan here. So this is now, we've delineated 275 meters of mineralized strike. There's some really high grade, good gold intercepts, 6 grams over 28 meters, 6.7 over 9, and there's a slew of other ones. There is some lower tenor mineralization here at Michigan as well, and what our objective this year, which has never been applied to Michigan or the rest of the property, is to go in with diamond drilling and actually orient to your core. And this is going to validate the structural orientation, and what we want to ascertain from that as well is what's controlling the high-grade mineralization. So the oriented diamond drilling is going to give us an indication on structurally what's happening, and can we tap into that high-grade mineralization more effectively and then step out along strike and also at depth. We're encouraged by this strike extent because we can see here all anomalies continue past drilling. We also have some high-grade rock samples that are, as high as 980 grams per ton gold. And we have this historical drill here that actually bottomed in mineralization at a 250 meter vertical depth. So that has given us confidence that the system at Michigan does have depth extent. We also, I mentioned the soils on the strike extent. We've also done an IP geophysical survey that shows that mineralized corridor continuing much further past the current drilling. And we also have high-grade gold. So we have a few ingredients here, and we really want to answer the question, is Michigan something meaningful that we want to continue to explore? And right now, there's a resounding yes, let's go after this target. If we can unlock this potential of the high-grade mineralization, we're off to the races. The other area we want to drill test is called Trench. And there we have one hole that came back late last year with a 10.78 grams per ton over 3 meter intercept that is completely open along strike and at depth. And then the other area we want to tackle is called Gray Lead. So if you recall a few slides back, I mentioned how the original discoverers of Pogo, they actually optioned this property here, and the first drill hole went into Gray Lead. And again, Gray Lead is the only zone that's actually produced high-grade gold Pogo-style mineralization. Now, when they drill tested Gray Lead, they only went down to about 120 meters vertical. And the objective there was to find this low angle vein, because that was how Pogo was discovered, and the only vein type that was mined all the way up until 2013. No one had this property in 2013. Subsequently at Pogo, they actually intersected a high angle vein carrying high grade gold, and I'm going to talk about that right here. And they updated the Pogo model. You can see that right here. This is actually from Sumitomo, or the Stoneboy joint venture at that time. So they've now interpreted that the high angle veins feed the low angle veins. Well, that low angle vein has been a mystery at Tibbs, and we think we're finally at the point where we believe where there's some low angle veins potentially hiding. This chart was actually created by them as well, and it compared the mineralization at Pogo versus Tibbs, and you can see it's remarkably similar. Now, if we go back to the gray lead zone and what they actually drilled, so this is a cross section from surface down to 50 meters. They put 5 holes to kind of nail down that orientation of the vein. And you can see some of the grays they encountered: 6 grams over 4, 15 grams over 5, 19 grams over 5, and so on and so forth. So this section is actually still open at depth. And what we want to do this year, again, utilizing the diamond drill, but orienting your core, which has never been done here, nail down that structural orientation and target the down dip extension of this vein. So this is what I would call a low-hanging fruit opportunity, and we're pretty excited to do that. We've now taken this model that, again, that was never applied on our property up until Tectonic. We went after, okay, where could these low angle veins be hiding? This is an important attribute to the Pogo model. And it's worth noting that the low angle is not the be all end all, that they actually are mining both sets of veins currently at the mine at Pogo. So, you know, we're going to still continue to go after both, but we think the low angle vein is where the real sweet spot could be. And with that in mind, we actually pulled out in our data room a 1999 cross section from WGM. This is called the Stoneboy project back then. And you can see the gray lead vein right here. So it's this high angle vein that they've delineated here. Now in this 1999 cross section, they indicated some low angle features that were coming out to the west here. And there were some spot anomalies here at gray lead west. So even back then, there was indication that there could be a low angle vein coming off a gray lead vein. So off we went into this gray lead west area, and we decided to go soil sampling last year. And before I get to that, I also want to draw attention to the actual Pogo anomaly, the size, the dimensions, the tenor. So this is actually the original Pogo soil map and the drill holes that they put into. You can see one hole this way, one here, one here. No specific linear trend to the soil anomaly. We have some lower tenor stuff in yellow, then some hot stuff in red here. And we actually pulled out the original cross section. And what you can see here, yeah, there was a soil anomaly, hence right here at surface. But in the first few 100 meters downhole, they weren't really getting anything amazing. 4 feet of 2.36, 4 feet of 3.15, and then 245 meters downhole, they hit 25 feet of almost a half-ounce material. So this actually is now, this was, or is, I should say, a low-angle vein that they mined out, and it was dipping parallel to the topography. So essentially, Pogo was somewhat of a blind discovery. Now, I mentioned that we were applying that new Pogo model to the property and going after areas where we thought low angle veins could be hiding. We had that cross section which sits right here. So this is that gray lead vein, the only known high grade Pogo style drill core outside of the Pogo claims in the Good Pasture district right here. So we have about an ounce per ton material, 18 grams, 28 grams, so on and so forth. And this is that cross section that they were saying to potentially target where they think there was some low angle veins coming out of here. We also have the USGS, the United States Geological Survey, that has actually mapped low angle thrust faults on our property. So that's another key ingredient to finding the low angle vein. The third key ingredient is look in the exact host rocks that host Pogo style mineralization. So these gneissic rocks highlighted here and bounded by these dark gray lines here, no one actually done a whole lot of work on our property. So off we went. We sent a soil sampling crew to specifically target the gneissic rocks, those mapped low angle thrust faults, and this gray lead west area. And lo and behold, we've now produced 5 very robust golden soil anomalies. And the icing on the cake is that the geochemistry from these soil anomalies is identical to what is seen at Pogo as far as mineralization is concerned. So we have a real opportunity to target a low angle vein here, which wasn't previously known. So this is some of the work. And when the field season ends, you start digesting all the data and remodeling things, looking at things through a different perspective. And this is one of the key targets that we're excited about. So this year, we're going to start drilling. We're going to mob in May, get the drills turning probably the first week of June, maybe a bit sooner. We're going to go drill test Michigan, follow up on 6 grams over 29 meters, trench 10.7 grams over 3 meters, grade lead down dip, where we have the 28 grams and 19 grams over 5, even 127 grams over 0.3 meters. Target that down dip extension of grade lead, and then we're going to diamond drill these 5 soil anomalies here. In addition to the drilling, we're actually going to go send out a mapping, prospecting, soil sampling crew down in this portion of the Tibbs property. Now, this is one of those new property acquisitions that we made in August of last year. So this is a southern portion of Tibbs. We acquired it from our native partner that I mentioned earlier. And we were excited about this area here because what you're looking at here in purple, this is a public data set that was made available by Sumitomo, again, the owners of the Pogo mine, where in 2013, they drilled this hole right here. This intersected 0.427 grams per ton over 514 meters. It's a whopper of a hole, and you can't really hide 514 meters of mineralization. So the mineralization here is more akin to what they see at Fort Knox. So we have a different style of mineralization occurring on the property here, but you can see the soils here are trending directly onto our property. There's also a structure that trends onto our property. So we went sampling down in here. It was, late season. We didn't get the results back till once we were out of the field, but we ended up getting multiple ounce per ton rock samples with visible gold in it, and also with the exact same geochemistry as this Brink target. So we want to go in there this year, suss this out a bit more, again, mapping, prospecting, soil, rock sampling, and get this to the drill ready stage, and hopefully put some drill holes into it before the season's over. So that's the first drill program you're going to get exposure to if you're a Tectonic shareholder. The second drill program is going to take place contingent on a capital raise, I will say, on our 70-mile project. So this is a 40-kilometer long greenstone belt that's been sitting dormant for over 20 years. If you want to find a multi-million ounce gold system, best place to look, or one of the best places to look, is the greenstone belt. So there's some historical work where actually drilling has produced multiple zones of mineralization that are all open along strike and at depth. Literally all these zones are open along strike and at depth. There's some ridge and spur spot anomalies that we want to follow up, but this year we're going to focus on this flume trend, which is about 8 kilometers long. It's a very robust trend, and riddled with golden soils, high-grade rock samples, veins coming to surface, and also these 3 zones of mineralization. And our work over the last 2 years has really been to refine these targets. So one of the first things we did is we flew a modern day Midas magnetic geophysical survey to tell us where that shear zone is, and also validate the different rock contacts that were identified in the mid-1990s. We went in with some power auger soil sampling tools to get deeper through the permafrost, and to that effect, also a top of bedrock sampling tool. So we now have here at Flanders a very robust golden soil anomaly, probably about almost 1 kilometer long. And remember I mentioned all the zones historically are still open along strike and at depth. Well, here, for example, you can see some of the grades that they encountered: 104 grams, 5 grams, 16 grams, 6 grams, 10 grams. This hole here that I'm pointing to with my arrow, that's 5.3 grams per ton over 15 meters. That's completely open. So again, one of the things that we've done in the off season is we've relogged all the core. We've modeled this into 3D, which that technology was not available back in the mid-1990s. We've also married that drill data, geological data, to the geophysical data. And what we've uncovered is that the high-grade gold is actually quite mappable, and it sits within a preferred rock unit. So we're going to be targeting that rock unit and stepping out along strike here, again, where previously 5.3 grams or 15 meters was encountered. So this is in this Alder Flanders Deep Creek area highlighted by this red box here. We're now going to jump over to Flume Bonanza, which is 5 kilometers away, and speak about some of the other zones that we want to drill test. So historically, Bonanza and Flume were known. We believed that the structural contact was the right contact to be on, and is the primary conduit for gold mineralization. So we went into this area here that was very permafrost rich. We brought in our new exploration tools, and lo and behold, we've produced some significant soil and top of bedrock anomalies. We put this one hole drill here last year, and we got 2 grams over 6 and 0.44 over 13. Now, just because there's no soils here does not mean that this is not an attractive area to go explore. This permafrost area, we believe, is masking it, masking potentially some golden bedrock, and we actually haven't soil sampled in here. These 3 holes here actually failed in mineralization. They only went to about 10 to 20 feet. The RAB drill that we utilized couldn't penetrate through the permafrost. The good news is a diamond drill does. We didn't have a clear indication on how deep that permafrost was. So this is some of the best soil anomalies on the structure. We also have this Flume trend and Bonanza, where every drill hole has intersected gold mineralization, 4 grams over 3, 2 over 10. Again, we've modeled this into 3D. We've stepped out with the soils, and this continues along strike. And we also have Bonanza, where we have a kilometer-long golden soil anomaly, 1.37 over 19, 1.34 grams over 44. So our goal here is to drill test these zones, stepping out along strike, and try to connect the zones, because we have 3 kilometers of potential trend to work with. All right. So I mentioned drills are going to start turning probably first week in June. To recap, you're a Tectonic shareholder. What are you going to get exposure to? The 2 drill programs, the testing of high-grade gold mineralization. In total, there's probably 13 targets between Tibbs and 70 Mile. 5 grams over 15 meters stepping out along strike, 6 grams over 29 stepping out along strike. Those new golden soil anomalies that have pogo-like characteristics. We'll have news flow right through till probably September, October, and we with drill success, we anticipate being more aggressive as well. That is it for the presentation. I'm going to pause there and open it up to Campbell or any viewers for any questions.
Questions? Did you say questions?
Did say questions.
Everybody, please send in your questions, and we'll ask them now. In 2019 and 2020, what portion of your drilling represents the reproduction efforts of the historical drill holes?
Can you repeat that? What proportion?
What portion of
2019
represents the reproduction efforts of the historical drill holes in 2019 and 2020?
Very, very little, actually. We did. I'm just going to go to a slide here to reference that to make this a little bit easier for the viewer. So let's go here to this slide. Bear with me. So if you look at this slide here, so we did have, for example, in Michigan, there was one historical drill here that encountered mineralization. And I wouldn't say it's a representation of historical drilling, because they actually drilled it in a different direction. And we came at it from another direction that we believe is the true orientation. Aside from that, Oscar Hilltop's a brand new discovery. Trench is a brand new discovery. No drilling in these 2 previous areas. And we did do some drilling here that did not return any anomalous gold, and also at Wolverine did not return any anomalous gold. So very little has been targeting specifically and the historical drilling.
How much does it cost to drill a meter for Tibbs and 70 Mile?
Sure. So these are helicopter supported drill campaigns, and that question gets asked a lot in our industry, and I'll answer. So for us, you're looking at roughly $500 to $600 a meter all in. People might say, oh my God, that's so high. Well, what they perhaps there needs to be more context with that question, in that these are shallow, high-grade targets. So I actually would ask, what's the cost for the entire drill hole, and where's your target situated? You know, a lot of people believe Nevada is like, oh, the cheapest place to explore, but a lot of the easy ounces near surface has been found. So they're drilling 2,000-meter long holes to get to that target. Sometimes it's 1,500 meters, 1,000 meters. Essentially, it's deeper drilling. So your cost per meter might say, oh, it's only this amount, but it depends on how far you're drilling. So there's other considerations to take in. It is not, like, I wouldn't say classified as relatively cheap. That's why you have to be smart with where your drill holes go, and be you know, make sure you have the targets positioned to the highest level possible before, you know, pulling the trigger on a diamond drill.
Do you anticipate shortages for manpower and/or equipment? Probably it's across the board. So let's say that's going to be happening. How are you handling that, if that's the case?
The short answer is no. I mean, COVID was breaking out in North America last year. Breaking out in North America last year around this time. Borders shut down, then opened up, and we were still able to execute those 5 exploration programs and 2 drill programs. We actually have everything teed up for this year, so it's all systems go. And what's also interesting is Alaska is implementing a vaccination process right at the airport, where, you know, tourists or, you know, workers such as myself can actually get vaccinated right at the airport and then be released into society. So we don't envision any issues this year whatsoever.
What types of different mineralization types have you encountered so far? What are they telling you?
Okay, well, a great question. So, for example, I would say at Tibbs, the mineralization that we're seeing is there's somewhat more of a stockworky distal type of mineralization observed at Michigan. Gray lead, we see Pogo style, and then down in the southern portion of Tibbs, we're seeing Fort Knox style mineralization. So from my perspective, the multiple types of mineralization is indications of a very robust system. You know, fluids have definitely preferred pathways. And when you look at our Goodpaster regional data set that we acquired last year, which has soils and rock samples and geophysics and stream sets from the entire district, Tibbs clearly stands out as one of the most anomalous projects in the entire district.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to pass this over to Adam Graff, who I want to actually welcome Adam Graff to the Amvest team. He's our new senior analyst of mining research. So this is his first webinar event in that capacity. So welcome to Amvest and welcome to the webinar, live from Long Island.
Tony, so it appears that you guys are focusing on the Tibbs area mineralization over the 75-mile area. Do you think that, are you prioritizing that based on your expectations of the ability to be able to build tonnage and ounces especially from these high grade, low angle structures that you're anticipating?
Yeah, I guess the short answer is yes. We are, we want to be effective with that diamond drill, and right now there's the quality or just the quantity of the targets at Tibbs. So we want to answer the questions. Is there a meaningful deposit hiding at Michigan, for example, Trench or Gray Lead? And we wouldn't feel right ending the season just on that note. We wanted to go after those new soil anomalies. So there's just more targets that are drill ready. I would say diamond drill ready. And what we've identified at 70 mile, 5 grams or 15 open along strike and the Flume Bonanza trend there. Yeah, those are great targets as well. But the typical challenge that junior faces is you only have so much capital. So how can you be the most effective? And we want to close the chapter at Tibbs this year. And we think if the diamond drill answers the questions, then we're going to know which way to go. 70 miles is a beast of a property. And when I say beast, I mean that in a very positive way. There's so many targets. So we're trying to validate our model a bit, the 3D modeling that we've done, our shear zone model at 70 mile, and we think by testing those few zones there, we can advance the property, because if those zones can't turn into something meaningful, then we're going to be hard pressed going after some of those ridge and spur spot anomalies or some of the other zones on the property.
Thanks, Tony. And just on another topic, native corporations, native groups have been in the headlines again just over the last week with a major project. Looks like potentially in jeopardy in BC because of a sort of unanticipated native group objection. Obviously, you guys are partnered with a native corporation. Sort of, what's your experience, both with their current company and with Kaminak about having the native groups on board? So when larger companies come to take a look at your projects, they're confident that they're not going to get stopped by a native group.
Yeah, I mean, there's certain places are better than others, I would say, and our experience, why we actually moved into the state of Alaska, is to specifically work with the native corporations on their own land. So in a lot of parts of Canada, there's unsettled First Nations, they're settled, and sometimes you don't know where the boundaries are or who has rights to what. In Alaska, we have a history of this with the native corporation, that there's defined parameters on who owns what, and it's established and it's legal title and so on and so forth. So why we like Alaska is A, they own the land, so first and foremost, and B, we actually try to take a lot of the risk out of the equation by A, meeting with them and the local groups to make sure everyone's on side, and our lease agreements actually cover all the aspects of exploration right through to production. So we think when we go to a major mining company and say, hey, do you want to be a partner on this, or would you like to buy this property, whatever the case may be, we've done all the heavy lifting at the forefront. And to take it one step further, they're now our shareholders. So where their challenges lie in our space is when this is done at the tail end during feasibility study. So doing it at the beginning, I can't say definitively, but it provides comfort. And I would also add that if anyone, such as yourself, the CEO of the Native Corporation, Doyle Limited, is readily available to meet with industry and promote the mining, promote that they're fans of mining and pro-business and pro-partnership. And he's actually been on this webinar as well with me once before. So he makes himself readily available because he wants the world to know that they're open for business. So I'm a big fan of the native corporations in Alaska for the most part. Some are more pro mining than others. The one we work with is first class, and I would say Canada is great too, and other parts of the world are great. It just depends a lot on what the company's doing, and did they actually engage early on? Did they formalize their agreements before they moved on, or is it all something they waited till the back end to deal with? And now there's issues to be dealt with.
All right. Thanks, Tony. Ernie?
You're welcome.
Thank you. Thanks, Tony. I'm wondering what exploration techniques help you at the TIPS project to locate the soil anomaly targets, or to do soil sampling. What gives you to do a soil sampling there?
I'm going to ask Campbell to repeat the question, or
let me ask again. What kind of geological clues are you getting? What exploration techniques are you using to find a prospect to do a soil analysis?
Okay, so we use power auger soil sampling in most cases, sometimes shovel sampling. We do a lineament analysis as well. So if your question is where do we target, or how do we target?
How do you target? Yeah.
How do we, yeah. So lineament analysis
and off the shelf gadgets.
Sure. Yeah. So first lineament analysis, aerial topography, drone footage. We also try to take that, marry it to the geophysics. So TIPS, for example, has a DIGIM survey. In certain parts, we have an IP geophysical survey. We also go, in this case, where the map low angle thrust faults are. And then what we try to do is rank our targets. So the more boxes they tick, you know, the more attractive they are. And in this case, those soil anomalies have also produced the, you know, exact same geochemistry as the mineralization observed at Pogo. We also sometimes do trenching and top of bedrock sampling. So we use a tool called the geoprobe, which can go, it's like a vertical push drill, goes up to 40 feet deep. Wherever that bedrock interface is, it stops, collects the sample. And so what we're trying to do ultimately is de-risk the soils to tie it to bedrock so we can be more effective in our drilling. And one thing I didn't mention is that we're actually going to be doing a Titan geophysical survey to help with existing zones and also those soil anomalies to see if we can identify those mapped low angle thrust faults where they sit in relation to depth. And we think the Titan survey is going to be an effective tool to help allow us to be more effective with the diamond drill.
Thank you. Why has no one explored the 70 Mile project for 20 years? And what has been identified during the past exploration efforts?
Okay, so the last company that explored 70 Mile was 1997. And we, you know, if anyone was around investing back then, that's when BRIEX unfolded and the junior mining sector got disseminated. Now 70 Mile sits with the Native Corporation, and like other parts of the United States, Alaska doesn't have a public mineral database that's accessible to explorers or miners. So you have to have a relationship with the with the Native Corporation to get access to the data. And so I think Doyon shifted a lot of its efforts to oil and gas, and the fact that it got dropped, it just kind of just sat there dormant. And you know, again, most people wouldn't know about it unless you had that relationship. So you build a relationship with the Native Corporation, you sign a non-disclosure agreement, and then, you know, the books get open and you get access to geological data. So that's the rationale why it sort of sat dormant for so long.
It makes sense. Thank you. And lastly, how much you have raised for the TIPS project, and how much of that money has been into the ground?
Oh, okay. Well, specifically for the TIBS project, I mean, I don't have that number right off the top of my head. I think we've raised about $15 million, just over $15 million, but that's been spread over a bunch of properties. And what I will say is that you know, the bulk of the capital we always raise goes into the ground. So, you know, last year's campaign was about 1.3 million. The year prior was about 1.5 million. The year prior to that was 800,000, and then 500. Sorry, yeah, 800 and 500,000. So, you know, whatever that ends up being, those are just some rough estimates off the top of my head.
Thank you. Campbell?
Sure. I think we've gone through quite a bit of questions. We're almost at 5 o'clock Eastern. So I want to thank everyone for tuning in and for your questions. And please share your feedback on your way out. You'll get a queue there and an email, and it'll make it to Tony and his team shortly. And again, you can get a copy of this in about an hour at amvestcapital.com/replays at this point. And I've got to turn it back to you, Tony, to close us. And as I always ask, Bart, you said it throughout, but if you could summarize why buy now? It's the 3rd of May.
Sure.
Got a nice season coming up. A lot of stocks.
Yes.
Why Tectonic, man?
Yeah, you know, I'll just go to this slide. I mean, ultimately, I would buy Tectonic because, you know, you got a team that has done it before. We can get creative on how we raise capital. We've demonstrated that through our native investment into our company. You have a team that has actually found gold, you know, turning Moose Pasture into 5 million ounces plus. We have on our team, we also have an environmental biologist. You know, we believe in sustainability, ESG, those kinds of things. And the reason why I buy also right now is that you're going to get exposure to high-grade gold being drilled near a mine. In addition to another drill program at 70 Mile, which is a large-scale greenstone belt. So a lot of targets going to get drilled, a lot of news flow. And, you know, I'd say to recap, the targets are probably in the best position they've been in the last 2 years. We've been growing them to the point where we want to go diamond drilling. This is going to be our first Tectonic's first diamond drill campaign since we started this company back in late 2017. So went public in 2019, and so we're ready to go.
Excellent.
And
All
if you
right.
are a shareholder or you want to invest, if you are a shareholder and want to invest, obviously we want to give support to our existing shareholders. Reach out to the company, make sure you're informed, and stay tuned for any other capital raises coming down the pipeline here.
Yep. Excellent. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good day, everyone. Good night.